Thank you very much. Welcome. Appreciate all you coming today to our panel on the water of Colorado Springs and beyond. I'm Thayer Tutt, Vice Chair and Chief Investment Officer of El Pomar Foundation. I have two mechanical things I was told to tell, correct? Number one, the bathrooms is that little white building over there, the old bathhouse for the swimming pool that no longer exists in the Penrose time. And the other thing, we do apologize, the air conditioning went out in here this morning, so we opened up the doors and hopefully everybody's okay. There was lots of water and soft drinks in the back and hard liquor later, but not now, right? Yeah, we don't want to get that going too early. But thank you very much. The Heritage Series program of El Pomar was created to celebrate and raise awareness of the natural assets of the Pikes Peak region. We do that by convening stockholders in government, civic, and businesses for issues that are important to the wise use, preservation of the water resource, of our resources in the Pikes Peak region. El Pomar is delighted to partnership with the Colorado Springs Utility and the Colorado Springs Leadership Institute. I wanted to recognize two individuals, one from each, who've really been important in creating the program and also participating in today's activity. Birgit Landon, right here, she's the Senior Conservation Specialist from CSU. Thank you very much. And someone who's not at all new to the city of Colorado Springs, the CEO, Executive Director of Colorado Springs Leadership Institute, Karen Paulus. Thank you. I also wanted to recognize the two people who put this together here at El Pomar. The first is our Associate Vice President and Director of the Heritage Series Program, Erica Oakley-Courage. Eric, great, Erica. And our second-year fellow who did most of the work, Ashley Bryant. Where's Ashley? Where is she? There she is. She's quietly sitting here. Water is a natural resource that's vital to our health, our community, and our economy. It's for decades, it's been a prominent issue facing the West as well as the Pikes Peak region and the state of Colorado. The key is the distribution and the protection of these water resources given how fast the population of Colorado has been growing. So we hope that this event that we are doing today will inspire, educate, and create opportunities for all of you to participate with the decision makers. And I forgot to recognize our elected officials. Will you please stand up, actually as a group, those elected officials here? Thank you very much. Obviously, those folks plus the leadership at CSU are critical, and the rest of us are here to give you advice and wisdom. You're okay, Dave, with that, right? Having opinions? Oh, you don't like that? Yeah, you've only been on the job a couple months. Come on. All right. Oops, I wasn't supposed to go off script. I apologize. So thank you very much for being here. Next, what I'd like to do is introduce the Travis Deal, the new CEO of Colorado Springs Utility. As he comes up, I'll do a little bit of a resume. He joined Colorado Springs Utility in 2017 as the Field Services Manager. In 2018, he was transitioned to the Energy Service Division, serving as a District Manager role, and then 2 General Manager positions. And then in 2020, he was named Chief Operations Officer, overseeing the utility's 4 service sections: electric, natural gas, water, and wastewater. He also served as the interim CEO before he took over the CEO job. We all welcome Travis Deal. Congratulations and thank you for being here.
So for those that know me, staying on script is a challenge, but I will do definitely the best I can. So thanks for everybody for attending this event today. Water, on the Front Range, especially the Pikes Peak region, is extremely important. And of course, that's why everybody in this room is here today. So I think you're going to learn a lot about a very complex system, that Colorado Springs Utilities operates to get water here today into this community. So, the Pikes Peak area watersheds definitely served this community when it first started. But from there, luckily we had great visionary leaders over the many decades that actually started taking a look at, getting water farther out. So that is the system that, several people actually got to see recently, on a 2-day water tour, is taking a look at what that system sort of looks like. So most of the water that is really delivered to the homes travels a very long way. So I know Abby's on the panel today, and she's probably going to go into some detail there, but a lot of water is 130 miles away. So those that, recreate and go into the town of Breckenridge and see those, you sort of see that upper blue system up through there, which is a beautiful area, of course, comes through. Then you have the Flying Arc as well as the Arkansas Basin. So that water, until somebody really understands that, the complexity it takes to get it from there to here is great. It's a great system. We have great employees sort of operating that. So to help do that, we got to have a water plan. And I think you're going to see a water planning team, which Abby is the general manager of our water planning section, as well as all 4 services now. We're planning, 50 years out. So that infrastructure that we continue to look at and continue to grow, whether it's the Montgomery Reservoir, we're looking at expanding, what that dam infrastructure looks like up there, and continue to be innovative in the lower Arkansas area, with some creative ways to bring water into our community, through some of the farming activities we partner with there, is great, and it's very exciting, to get us there. Water is one of those that we can't guarantee every year, and I think everybody has seen that with the moisture we've had this year. It's been great. Everybody's, I've never seen grass so green. Football fields are in great shape. Everything really looks good. But the focus has to continue on conservation and has to continue on us building out that water system. And, sometimes when you see years like this, it sort of concerns me in some ways that everybody's focus will deter away from what water really is. So hopefully, groups like this, we bring that focus back. We continue to make sure we're being aggressive in our thoughts, being aggressive in our planning, and making sure we sort of bring that into the community. And we are, continue to focus there. And I know Birgit's going to be up next, so I get to introduce, a phenomenal person who does an amazing job, helping facilitate. So I am definitely a very low-key warm-up session, for her. 100% admit that. Then in sort of 2 rows back, Brian Warniger, who's joined our team, who's been running fiber, is going to really take over the manager of our raw water and some of our wastewater infrastructure up there. So he's not there yet, so he can't answer the hard questions, but we'll try to get him in front of everybody at some point. So with that, please ask a lot of questions today. We're here to support this great organization that continues to look at this. We appreciate the venue and everything everybody here does today. So look forward to it. I'm going to be staying around for a while, so if anybody's got any questions of me, feel free to reach out. But thank you. And I did not stay on script, but I was close. So all right. Birgit.
Thanks, Travis. It's great to see you all here today and putting on a water panel. When the El Pomar Foundation reached out with the idea, I was thrilled. So what I get to do at Colorado Springs Utilities is education and outreach for the utility, and I just love doing that. Water is a passion of mine, and so seeing you all here today and some former utility employees too, it's terrific. So thank you for being here. So we're going to kickstart this panel, because you get to hear from the experts very soon, with a bit of a polling question, some questions. They're not tough and they're anonymous. So if Carlos can bring up the QR code. So thank goodness COVID taught us how to use QR codes. So go ahead and pull out your smartphones, take a shot of that, and that should open up the poll. If that isn't working, then you can put into your browser slido.com and enter those numbers right there. I'll give you a moment to pull that up. There are 7 questions. Please participate. This gives you a chance to kind of gauge what you know about our water system, and then also what your thoughts are about water in our community. And if you're anything like me, I always think everybody thinks like I do. And then I go and I find out that's not necessarily true. So take the poll and then we'll go over the results in just a minute. Okay, so we're waiting a second. Okay, there's the first question. Did it pop up on your phone now? Are we good? Thumbs up? Yes. Okay, technology, I love it. That's why we have these really young fellows here, because I'd be like, just show of hands, which answer do you think is, I threw in one that's a trick question. Answer, anyway. Washing your car should not be the answer. So the first question, the answer is agriculture. And it's 86 to 90% of the water in the state of Colorado is actually used for agriculture. All right, the next question, where does the majority of the water in Colorado Springs come from? No one's saying groundwater yet. That's good, because you're right. That's a close one. It's kind of fun to watch it slide back and forth. Maybe that's why they named it Slido, right? Okay, the answer is the Colorado River. And it's surprising how many of our customers and our citizens don't know this. So when you hear about the Colorado River in the news, and you think, well, I don't really care what's happening over there on the other side of the state, you live in Colorado Springs. You might want to pay more attention because it's the majority of the water being served to you. All right, let's take a look at the next question. What percentage of your water comes from our local water sources, like the streams here, and our local watershed, which, by the way, our local watershed is the Arkansas River Basin. We're part of the Arkansas River Basin. So what percentage comes from the local watershed? Nancy's not doing the poll. She knows the answers, though. Oh, you already did it. You're so fast. Man, I'm impressed. Excellent. Okay, so far it looks like 30% of you think, half of you think it's 30%. And you're right. So 30%, only 30% of the water used in our community comes from our local watershed. And the local watershed is the Arkansas River Basin, which is quite large. The actual amount just that we collect here right in the city area off of Pikes Peak region is only 17%. And the rest comes up from Pueblo Reservoir. So total amount is about 30%. All right, this is always a good one to ask. How many gallons of water do you think a Colorado Springs resident uses on average per day? Let's see how you do. I asked this question in elementary schools and they're like, 1,000 gallons. Thank goodness that's not true. Or they'll say something like 1 gallon. Well, guess what? 1 toilet flush is more than that. Okay, so let's see. So far, most of you are thinking it's about 56 gallons. But you're wrong. It's not that. It's actually 76 gallons per person per day. That's because this number includes outdoor watering as well as indoor watering. And so that number on average is 76 gallons per person per day. Now, here's the thing. When I started at utilities 12 years ago, that number was 97 gallons per person per day. So in 12 years, we have dropped significantly in our water use. And some of you are asking, how did we do that? I'll tell you later. But it's a good trend. We got to keep going. There's more we need to do to get to that sustainable future. All right, next question. What does xeriscape mean to you? When you hear xeriscape, what do you envision in your mind? Okay, we have a very informed audience here. Most of our customers are like, zero-scaping, like zero, right? That means no landscaping. That means, if anything, just rock the whole yard. And that's why we have changed the name of our demonstration garden to Water Wise Gardens. Yes, Judith, she's a big fan of that. All right, good. Water Wise landscapes, that's what we're going for here. That's what's going to help us get to that sustainable futures, or are those resilient landscapes. I don't know if you noticed in the last slide where we had the pie chart on the use, 40% of the water used by residents is used outside for landscaping. So if we can reduce that number, that's going to make a big impact on that sustainable future. All right, let's go to what's your top concern regarding water in our community? And at first I wanted to make this a word cloud, but they're like, it's not possible. I said, okay, I'll throw up some options. So hopefully I captured what your top concerns are, and I'd like to actually see what what the top one is. I have a guess. Yeah, it's just what I guessed. Exactly. Most of the people I encounter in the community presentations and such, they're really worried about, are we going to have enough water? We are growing like crazy. Look at all these townhomes going up, all this construction, all this building. Do we have the water for this? They're very, very concerned. And Colorado Springs Utilities has a sustainable water plan, and we have a way to make sure we will have enough for the future. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you're part of that on reaching that sustainable future. But that is the biggest concern. What's the most important thing you are doing to conserve water? And I hope nobody's saying the bottom answer. Please at least take shorter showers. There are 5-minute shower timers on the basket on the Colorado Springs Utilities table in the back too if you need a little help taking shorter showers. All right, so let's see, what is the most important thing you are actually doing? I really like to see the answers here. So far, the winner is following the WaterWise rules. Excellent. That means you know what they are and you've heard of them. Give yourselves a round of applause. That's fantastic. We've only had them in place for, 2 years? Not even 2 years. It's making a huge difference in our water use in our community. 3 days maximum watering a week during the summer, before 10 or after 6 p.m. It's just common sense, works well for resilient landscapes. We're going to try to reduce that. A resilient landscape in the future is going to look more like once a week watering. That's what we're going towards. All right, great. Are we in danger of running out of water? You know, I don't remember putting that question in there. Popped up, Carlos, you just put it in there to surprise me. Okay, well, I don't think we are in danger of running out of water. We have enough capacity right now to meet the demand, and we have a plan for the future, so we're in good hands. But let's hear from the experts. So at this point, I'm going to bring up Karen Paulus. She is currently serving as the executive director of the Colorado Springs Leadership Institute, and she was, for the last 10 years before that, our Parks and Rec director. So welcome, Karen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have to say I'm delightfully pleased at how well you did today with Birgit's questions, because, you know, sometimes you ask folks where their water comes from, and they say what? The faucet. Very well done. Excellent. Well, I'm going to do my best to stay on script. I know we're on a tight time frame, and you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from those folks up front, our experts that are here to share expertise with you. Well, I do want to extend a warm welcome as you gather to discuss an extremely important topic for our community. It's water and the sustainability for its future. Water, as we all know, is the lifeblood of our planet. It sustains us, nourishes our ecosystems, enables various activities that are crucial to our daily lives. However, it is no secret that we are facing a global water crisis, and Colorado is no exception to this predicament. With its arid climate, rapidly growing population, I think you've heard that a few times today already, the state's encountering significant challenges when it comes to ensuring a sustainable water supply for its residents, agriculture, and industries. Colorado boasts stunning natural beauty, magnificent landscapes, and abundant natural resources. Yet it's unfortunate that water scarcity and the associated difficulties have become a prevalent issue here. The state's resiliency on snowmelt and the Colorado River's flow for its water supply has become increasingly vulnerable due to variable climates, prolonged droughts, and competing demands for our neighboring states. It's imperative for us to understand the gravity of this situation and to recognize the urgency to act, and I believe that's why you all are here today. Water scarcity not only affects the lives that we hold near and dear, but poses a significant threat to our environment, economy, and our overall well-being. Without a sustainable water supply, we risk compromising our agricultural production, endangering those ecosystems we love, exacerbating social inequalities, and impeding our economic growth. Today, as we delve into this program, we aim to shed light on the importance of water, the water conservation, our water management, and our sustainable practices that can help mitigate the challenges that we face. We will explore innovative solutions and share knowledge to promote a collective understanding of why we should all deeply care about the future of water in Colorado. Our distinguished panel of experts is here today to share their insights, experiences, and expertise, offering a comprehensive view of the water crisis and potential pathways towards a sustainable future. Through their dialogue, we hope to inspire you all to become proactive advocates for water conservation and fostering a sense of responsibility towards our precious water resources. So let's meet our panelists, and as they come to the stage, please welcome Dr. Eric Paramon, Professor of Environmental Science and Southwest Studies at Colorado College. Next, I'd like to welcome Abby Ortega, General Manager of Infrastructure and Resource Planning Department of Colorado Springs Utilities. Next, I'd like to welcome Bill Tyner, former Division Engineer at Colorado Division of Water Resources and owner of Tyner Engineering and Sciences, LLC. All right, and last but never least, please welcome Matt Heimrich, board member of the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservation District. Thank you, Matt. All right, can we hear everybody in the back with our microphones? Very good, okay. Here we go. As we embark on our journey together, let us remember that water knows no boundaries. It transcends political affiliations and our personal interests. It is our shared responsibility to ensure a sustainable future for ourselves, our community, and our generations to come. So let's start with our first question. Are you ready? Yes? Are you sure? Okay, here we go. We're going to start with Dr. Paramon. Provide some historical context that shaped our water situation today.
So 10,000 years ago. No, I'm kidding. This question, for the record, got changed in between our first conversation and what appears today, but I'll try my best. One of the things I think, just to lead off with is thinking through the scales of water that we take for granted. And since we're here in Colorado, which is the home of strict prior appropriation, where people think they actually own the water as opposed to the right to use it, and that the state actually has the ownership of it. That's always a big shock for some. I think part of that is linking through to our eventual conversation about the Colorado River crisis, or a lessening one in a good year. And like I think Travis, I'm a little dismayed that we didn't face a good crisis to make harder decisions this year, and that we might lose the attention of the feds on trying to come up with better decisions. One of the great benefits, allegedly, of prior appropriation is that it's already a system ready to deal with scarcity, right? Because it's already first in time, first in right. So the senior water rights will get their water, and those who are junior water rights will get less or none. And you think that would be an orderly system, except that most people need water. And the ones that have the senior water rights are going to be the agriculturalists. We'll return to that question too, because I think that's really one of the fundamental ironies in Colorado is that for a state that started with mining and agriculture, most of the people now in Colorado live in the cities and are on the Front Range and depend in urban contexts for water supply, even though the vast majority of senior water rights as a portfolio are held by agricultural parties and interests. And that's something we can't overlook or pretend to ignore or demean. And we'll talk about that demeaning later. I got comments later. The other part that I want to highlight too is that this is all interlinked with a huge panoply of agencies, entities, districts that all think they're in charge of water. And when the jurisdictional kind of fragmentation of water happens across boundary lines, because water doesn't care what your politics are or what division you're in. And I think we forget about that. So when I see, flowing pictures of rivers, I'm always struck with yeah, that's what we want, is rivers, not just water rights. But that's what connects us to the Colorado River crisis, and thinking through that it's not just water rights, it's states that have carved out, like a turkey, parts of that turkey in terms of the 1 million acre feet on the Colorado River. And if we ignore the fact that states have a giant pecking order before even states can then allocate water rights internally, we're missing 80% of what's coming. Finally, I just want to say that, and it's not that water rights don't matter, but they might matter less once we start hitting a wall, and if allocation cuts come on the Colorado River at some point. We just have to be realistic about that. We might have to do it 10% less, 20% less, 25% less. How do we do that? So I'm glad to hear that planning is already thinking about 50 years down the road. That's what we need. And finally, just one quick comment about even if you don't believe that climate is shifting, it won't matter, because climate is taking its share of water. Climate bats last in terms of taking a water right. How so? Evaporation. Doesn't care about your dam. It's going to take 7 to 10% if it just sits there and cooks under the water. If we have to fight fires increasingly in the West, where's that water coming from? The same reservoir where evaporation is taking place often, right? So I think thinking through the dimensions that water is not just water, and we're going to have to depend on multiple sources for thinking this through. That's as best as I can do for historical. Thanks.
Well done. There you go. All right, Abby, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'll take the perspective from the city. You know, Travis talked just a little bit about it, but our forefathers here were very smart, very inventive. You know, they developed the water system on Pikes Peak when we were first developing as a city. And as soon as we started to grow is about the time the drought hit, right? And so then we went to the next part of Pikes Peak and we developed the South Slope system. And then 1930s, we developed the North Slope and Northfield systems. And so every large water project that had people thinking outside of their normal has been instigated by drought and a population growth. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. You know, in the 50s, we developed our trans-basin systems and continued to develop those. There's no easy water left, right? It is all allocated. The Arkansas Basin is extremely over-allocated and over-appropriated. So how do we move forward? We work together. And over the last 20 years, I think the city of Colorado Springs has demonstrated that we are willing to collaborate with others, not just ag users, but West Slope and East Slope, work together with upper states that are part of the upper Colorado region, support the state's position on negotiations for the Colorado River, and really position ourselves knowing that as a community, we continue to grow, and Colorado Springs Utilities wants to stay a vibrant community. We are not Arizona, we are a headwater state, and we should look like a headwater state, which means we have gorgeous, vibrant landscapes, and those can be accomplished with 3 days a week or 1 day a week watering in the future. And so knowing that our community values water in the way that we do, the fact that we have cut back our water use and recognized that value has set us up for a great future. We're going to talk a lot today about drought and the problems with water and the problems in the state. But really, I want to say that for our community, our history has led us to this point where we are set up for a great future.
All right, thanks, Abby. All right, let's go to this side of the table. Bill, you want to take that same question?
I'll take it away. It's an honor to be with you today. It looks like just a wonderful group of folks here, and just a privilege to be here. As Eric mentioned, you know, Colorado baked into its constitution this concept of the Colorado Doctrine, that water was so important that the prior appropriation system was the system that Colorado was going to have, and that distinguished Colorado from the states that a lot of the settlers had moved out of, where riparian water law was the law of the land. If you owned land near a river, you got to use water from the river. Colorado wanted to be different because Coloradoans in mining development and agricultural development diverted water out of the river and moved it a long ways away. And you can see that in the Arkansas Basin, where canals like the Fort Lyon Canal have over 100 miles of canal system that extend away from the river and out onto the valley floor to irrigate over 90,000 acres. I think also important to note for Colorado is that we have laws that were helpful to have us in a good position when we were in interstate compact conflicts. And those include the 1965 Groundwater Management Act and the 1969 Water Right Determination and Administration Act that allowed a structured system for water. You might contrast that with some of the other states that we deal with, like California, for example, who basically had an unregulated groundwater system, still largely does have an unregulated groundwater system. Wells went in huge numbers as a response to drought, but caused huge problems that I still don't think they've worked their way out of. New Mexico did not have a great system to try to rank their water rights, to try to help people understand how they could use water. So Colorado's laws put us in a good position, but Colorado's got huge challenges. In 1950, we had a population of about 1.5 million people. By 2000, that had grown to about 4.3 million people. And then by 2022, 5.8 million people. And you can't continue to supply a growing population in an over-appropriated basin like the Arkansas and other portions of the state where there's more demand for water than supply without shifting some of those supplies from one use to another.
Matt.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here, as Bill said. So just a little bit of addition. I represent Crowley County on the Southeast Water Conservancy District. That's the district that built the Frying Pan project, Arkansas project, and brings water over from the headwaters of the Frying Pan through the Boosted Tunnel. Your utility through the Fountain Valley Authority is a part of that and participates in that, and that's obviously a big part of your water supply. But you also have, as a utility and as citizens, you have a large presence in my county. You own the majority shares in the Colorado Canal, Lake Meredith, Lake Henry, and the Twin Lakes Company, which were the original companies which irrigated 50,000 acres of land in Crowley County. So historically, I think for context, maybe it's helpful just to know that in Colorado, at least, and certainly in the lower Arkansas Valley, our water rights were developed really by developers and by small ditch company and farmers. There was no real federal money involved until the Big Thompson project in the late 30s and 40s. So we have a myriad of ditch companies, small, large, and thousands literally of water rights that are administered by the state of Colorado. What drove development, I think, that's pretty well proven for irrigated agriculture in Colorado was the explosion of the beet industry back in the late 19th century. That also accompanied, interestingly enough, huge immigrations and what kind of makes Colorado kind of unique, honestly, as a Western state with our diverse population that includes folks from Eastern Europe, which were brought into our country and Weld County to farm beets. Our Japanese population, which was brought in to also work in the beet fields and work in the vegetable fields, and even, quite frankly, a fair amount of folks from old Mexico who came up here and also worked, but then became landowners. Colorado has, I think, a really interesting history and diversion of that way as well. The one thing that I think, valuable for this group is that Colorado Canal was, quite frankly, one of those land schemes. The person who did it and headed the development was a known rascal in Western law and promised things he couldn't deliver. And as a result, a lot of farms were not able to produce what they thought they were going to produce. And by the late 1920s, with the onset of the Dust Bowl, Crowley County's agriculture was in bad shape. And the answer they came up with was to develop a trans-mountain diversion system that we now call the Independence Pass system, which originates in the Roaring Fork above Aspen and diverts sometimes up to 50,000 acre-feet of water onto the eastern slope. And again, your utility is a major owner of that company. But it was all developed originally to satisfy the farming needs of the farmers that lived in Crowley County. So I think that's some good history. Very much private development, very much dependent on an industry that essentially went kaput. brought us a great diversity of farmers and immigrants, paved the way for Trans Mountain diversions in the state of Colorado, and I think that's a good thing to think about as we move into the future and how we've developed.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to question number 2. What are the major challenges facing water management in Colorado and Colorado Springs? And I believe, Abby, you're going to lead off on this one?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, I mean, I could talk for the next hour about some of the water challenges, but I think I'm limiting my comments to 3 minutes. But for us, it's really balancing the fact that our community continues to grow. We need to develop additional supplies in a system where the water is frankly just a lot less than it was 100 years ago. So we're seeing less supplies. We need to develop those supplies. We need to value that water. And we need to keep our system reliable in a system that was built, as we talked about, in the late 1800s and the 1930s. Most of our large dams were done in the 1950s. So they're reaching that end of life cycle. And so balancing all of that with keeping our rates at a reasonable place for all of our customers and making our water available to all those customers and affordable to all those customers. So we work very hard to balance that. And not only are we balancing that, but where we develop our water comes from places like Crowley County. Matt was very nice about his description of that, and I'll probably talk more about that in the next question about how that maybe wasn't the best way to develop water supply, and we're really working hard to partner with others as we develop our next increments of water supply and keep ag production because, we all need to eat. Some of us like horses, some of us need hay. A lot of that hay comes from the lower Arkansas Valley. So how do we balance our community's needs with the balance of the region, the balance with our state? That's really where we're working. So those are just a few of the major challenges. We'll talk about how we try to address those challenges going forward.
So Abby, that artifact in the back was a recent removal, right? The water system. Get a chance to check that out. All right. Bill, you want to take on that same question?
Yeah, Abby gave a great introduction on that question. Colorado, as she mentioned in the first question, is a headwater state. We have 9 interstate compacts, 2 Supreme Court cases that dictate the division of water on 2 of our rivers, and a couple of agreements that dictate water on some smaller rivers. So every bit of water that leaves the state of Colorado pretty much is under some type of tight interstate agreement or compact. And most important to us in this basin, of course, is the Arkansas River Compact and the 2 Colorado River Basin Compacts, the 1922 Compact between 7 states, and then a 1948 Compact for the upper Colorado Basin states that dictates a little bit how they divide the waters in the upper basin. And I think that the Colorado River Basin obviously has gotten a lot of press, and it well-deserved press, as you saw, for Colorado Springs utilities and the El Paso County area. Colorado River Basin water is very important. But overall, as Matt mentioned, the Colorado River Basin imports are not just Colorado Springs imports. They include Matt's Water Conservancy District, Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District, who built the Frank Penn, Arkansas project. So those imports of Colorado River Basin water average about 140,000 acre feet a year into the Arkansas Basin from the Colorado River Basin, as low as a little less than 70,000 acre feet in 2002, and as high as just over 230,000 acre feet in one of the best years. This is from 1997 to 2022. So that supplemental water supply is extremely important to the basin, and it's important in a lot of ways. There's been a huge amount of collaboration on how that water gets used for multiple benefits. Matt's district in Colorado Springs Utilities has partnered really well with the Upper Arkansas headwaters recreation area, to where the Arkansas Basin has the longest stretch of gold medal water fishery in the state of Colorado, down through to Pueblo, and also one of the most vibrant rafting industries. And that largely is supported by the imported water that can help sustain flows at the right levels, whereas the native supplies that fall in the basin are dictated by that prior appropriation system, and that water needs to go when and where it needs to go based on that prior appropriation system. I'm glad that Abby mentioned storage. Storage is extremely important in the Arkansas River Basin. Our supplies are much more limited than on the west slope. The unfortunate thing about Colorado is all the water, or the majority of the water is on the west slope and the majority of the population's on the east slope. But in the Arkansas Basin, we are able to do great things because we manage our water effectively, but we still bemoan the fact that we don't have enough storage. Abby and I talked at one point this year where things had turned on a dime and June became one of the wettest Junes we've had in a long time, and storage filled up in a lot of places that none of us were expecting to have it fill up. And so that shows the importance of not only conservation in trying to solve this problem, but also storage to try to take advantage of a highly volatile basin. I think climate change will have those types of impacts where it's not just that we'll have less water, but we'll have water when we didn't expect it, snowmelt runoff that perhaps comes at different times than we expect. So that's an important element.
All right. All right, Matt?
So I guess I'll answer this question from the perspective of an irrigator. So my wife's family and myself and our immediate family have several thousand acres of irrigated land in both Crowley and Otero counties under 4 ditch systems. Sometimes I wonder if it's not water management, but over the last 2 decades, no water management. Because simply, if you look at what we do from a business perspective, we have money invested in land, we have equipment, we have our own labor. Obviously, we have inputs. We all know what those are as business people, and the last thing you really want to do is start tearing up a lot of fragile land and then not have a water supply to irrigate it. So. There have been years when, quite frankly, I'm not looking for the opportunity to make money. What I'm looking for is I'm playing a big game of defense and trying not to lose money and trying to take care of what we're charged with stewarding, right? We live in a highly erodible area. It takes literally thousands of years to make an inch of soil, and you could lose several inches in one big dust storm over several days, and I've seen it. So for us as farmers, it's just been the erratic nature of what the hydrograph has done over these last 2 decades. I mean, this year we prepared just enough and took a guess because Brian Bledsoe said we were going to have an El Nino, and we like Brian Bledsoe. So we just got enough land ready that when it did rain, we went in and did some quick work and planted a crop. But quite frankly, we were prepared. I was prepared to have probably less than 10 days of irrigation water this year. So we were very, very cautious about how we were going to go about doing our business. And honestly, it's not a great way to build a legacy and build a business when the thing that's most important to what you have is not there. It really begs the question, honestly, how much can you keep doing this, I think is a good way to put it.
Right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. All right. Eric?
I was going to make a joke that I don't think we manage water so much as water users and the timing of deliveries, and that's it. I think most of what we do is not simple, but it's more about allocation. And I think to the concerns here of people who actually manage water, not me, I just manage students in a classroom, is thinking through the dilemmas of the hardware of water. So the dams, which we think of as like our only option for storage, let's think about storage in different ways. Start storing underground where the evaporation can't get to the actual water that we're trying to store. The other thing that concerns me is like the software of water. So the compact negotiations that might happen or some kind of new guidelines by 2026 in the Colorado River. also greatly concern me. And my wish list would be like, maybe they actually acknowledge the actual water that flows in the Colorado River and put that into language. Unlikely, but that would be a great first start instead of the science fiction of like, oh yeah, there's this many million acre feet in the Colorado River. That might be nice.
All right, thanks, Eric. Okay, we're going to head into our third question. How do you balance the needs of agriculture, urban development, and the environment when allocating water resources? And Matt, I think you're going to lead us off on this one.
Well, that's been certainly that's a question that I think every irrigated farmer and rancher in the state of Colorado has probably thought about at one point in time. Given what we've talked about in terms of how the state constitution guarantees my right as a water right owner. I don't own the water, but I own the right to divert it and put it to beneficial use. I can lease, mortgage, collateralize, or sell that water right. And being a capitalist society, we've used the easiest common denominator, which is the dollar bill, to determine largely how allocation happens. We've talked about preserving the highest value agricultural production. There's been agencies, even in this county, in this city, that have worked diligently towards some things like that. But it's not easy to do. I mean, when someone's looking for water or somebody wants to sell water, I will tell you from experience, it's not like they go out and start to do a master plan and decide, wow, this is really great ground, we shouldn't sell it or dry it up. It's how much money do you think I can get for it, and who's the highest bidder, and let's move on. I mean, that's really how it's been done. Unfortunately, I think to a large extent that continues to be how it's done, especially amongst those cities and municipalities that are outgrowing their water resources at an exponential rate. Maybe not so much utilities here in Springs, but certainly if you look in northern Colorado and these developments and these cities in Weld County and Adams that are just exploding, or the city and county of Broomfield. The environment is sneaky. It's snuck in there simply because people finally recognize that the environment needs a water supply. And the environment really doesn't advocate for itself very well. Let's agree, right? But really smart people who have a love for the environment have actually held many water right owners' feet to the fire, and especially when we do changes of water rights, they've been at the table and they've actually been able to secure ways to keep stream flows up, help fish flows. We've talked about the voluntary flow program that we have in the Arkansas, very cooperative. I mean, I certainly will see, I see that happening more and more in the state of Colorado. And right now it's really honestly happened more in the headwaters and in the western slope. But I would say that the environment is working hard to catch up. And I think even as an irrigator, understanding the dynamics of how water makes it to my farm, having healthy watersheds, I think at the end of the day, is something that is going to help all of us as water users. So I'll hit it back out.
Okay. Eric? Good.
I'll try to be pointed here, but brief. I don't want to make enemies, but I might.
Come on, Eric.
One of the most disappointed faces you'll ever see on someone visiting my house is someone trying to sell me lawn services. Because there's no lawn. Like the Scott guys, bless their hearts. Who try to come by, I'm like, take a look. There's nothing left. And that's just to say that I'd rather incentivize pulling out lawns for which I have no goats than try to sack agriculture and buy and dry. Like, it's so much easier in a city to not put in a lawn and then gaze upon it like some manor lord. Because it's not the 1600s. We're not Scottish golfers. So I've never gotten it. I've never understood this. And I say that as an American from the Midwest, born in Columbus, Ohio, not some weird alien who doesn't understand the species of grass. We could do better and incentivize better ways to pull out lawn. If it's 37% of water use is outdoors and people are just out there hosing something they can't eat, okay, start there. Second point, sorry, this is going to get interesting. Coupling water allocation to land use zoning and actually imposing some new requirements for on-site water harvesting and building codes. Like, you want to charge developers 25 grand per house, 50 grand per house, okay. But what if we just said, why not some water collection services on that roof if you insist on having some outdoor landscaping? Let's just get smart about it. Like, those small percentages make a huge difference if you do that for banning Lewis Ranch, for example. I know that's controversial. Might raise costs by like 5 grand, but so would new siding. And then the last thing about environment is that we forget that, water's in us. And, what's really interesting is, having run this watershed during the pandemic of Monument Creek in Arkansas a lot, is seeing beavers come back, seeing people fish and pull greenback cutthroat trout at the intersection of I-25 and Nevada. If you look down from the desolation that is that little intersection and look into the water, people are pulling native species from that water. So there's a lot there that could be done. And imagine a river that was like celebrated and elevated going through downtown Colorado Springs, not like treated like a sewer, maybe? But that's, and that's tough. That's just not on Colorado Springs utilities. That's all the septic systems that are north, right? This is not like a one-party solution or problem. So those are just simple things and observations that would be nice to do. But let's stop sacking agriculture if in a city I'm not producing food with grass.
All right, Abby, you want to bring this one home?
Sure. I'm glad I'm going after Eric and not before him, I think. So, when we look at when our systems were developed, the environment community really didn't have a voice. That started more in the 1970 era, where you started to see those. You saw in-stream flows come up, you saw recreational and channel diversions come up, and we started really knowing that we needed to balance that need. In the past, I think maybe there was enough water that the rivers were still flowing even when we were diverting. There weren't enough people here to divert all that, but the reality is now the environmental plays a huge part. And when we built the Southern Delivery System, we recognized that. We have, I'll call them environmental recreational flows below Pueblo Reservoir. We make sure that the flow below Pueblo Dam does not drop below 100 cubic feet per second the majority of the time. And in really, really dry years, like, what happened this March, we make sure it doesn't drop below 50 cubic feet per second so that those fish have the habitat. We also bring flows up to above 500 so that the kayakers can do that. And so we manage that. We work hard to manage Fountain Creek, and I know that Fountain Creek is not the prettiest creek in the state, and never has been, right? In the late 1800s, people moved away from Fountain Creek because they didn't like the smell of it from the buffalo dung. We work to manage that. I think we value that creek, and we work really hard to do that. In balancing the needs of agriculture, we all know buy and dry is not the answer going forward. Industries die out. Farmers maybe don't want to farm anymore. I cannot tell you how many calls I get from farmers saying, do you want to buy my water? And the reality is we're trying to partner with irrigators, and this is what I tell them. We're partnering with the Fort Lyon Canal right now, working with the Benton County Commissioners to make sure that the next water supply that we develop does not negatively impact their county. While we talk about 37% of the water in Colorado Springs being used on the grass, that's 37% of about 8% of the state's water supply being used outdoor. Is that too much? Yes. Are we looking at landscape transformations? Yes. But the reality is the majority of the water in the state is used on agriculture. A lot of that agriculture is grown by flood irrigation. We know that that's not the most efficient way to do it. We asked all of you to cut back on your water use in the early 2000s. And now we're taking that next step and partnering with ag and investing in irrigation efficiencies for agriculture that keep the production the same, keep the county's economic impacts the same, and allow Colorado Springs or potentially other municipalities to bring some of that water supply in to support our community and bring a resilient water supply for us. While the Colorado River is facing, historic drought, last 23 years have been drought conditions. minus this year, which I too am concerned that the federal government will forget what they were trying to do in March and May by not asking the lower basin states to cut back. The reality is we all need to work together. We all need to use only what we need. That includes the lower basin states. When you hear watering restrictions in California are 5 days a week, I struggle with that when we're asking our communities up here to water 3 days a week. And so Colorado Springs engages with the state. We support the state's position in those negotiations that are coming up. The compacts, are they perfect? No, but the reality is the compacts give us some amount of protection. If we didn't have the compacts, if we didn't have the Water Rights Administration, water flows towards money, alternating that. And California has more political power and more money than Colorado does. And so the reality is I think we have it pretty good. We're balancing those needs. We're valuing the environment. We're valuing our water supply. And we're preparing for our future.
Very good. Thanks, Abby. All right, Bill, you want to finish up our balancing
I will.
question?
Yeah, this was really well covered, but I'll just comment on a couple of things. Colorado Springs Utilities and some of the other communities in El Paso County have been good partners in those alternative transfer method projects to try to allow farmers to keep their water rights, but to allow cities to use that water in different patterns. So, for example, the longest pilot project that's been running was under the Catlin Canal, and that was 30% of a farm could be dried up each year for 10 years, but no more than that 30%. And that 30% water could go to various municipalities. I think Security and Fountain were the participants in that first one. Colorado Springs was involved in one where it was 3 and 10 years. A farm that participated would not farm in 3 and 10 years, and the water would go to that municipality to help restore storage of municipal supplies. Those are good projects to try to find other ways to manage and buy and dry. Environmentally, I would just maybe do a call out to the Arkansas Basin Roundtable and the Arkansas River Basin Watershed Collaborative. Is that right? Did I get that right? Who both do some great work and look at a number of things environmentally, like forest health and things that impact the environment that affects your water supply and those collection systems. I would also mention that some of the improvements that take place on farms, like sprinkler systems, lining some laterals or lining potentially even some sections of canals, allow for less return flow that travels across shale layers and creates much worse water quality as you move from west to east in Colorado. And it's a huge problem for Kansas because the water quality in the Arkansas River is poorest at the state line. So that's a situation where we do have some cooperation across the state line with Kansas to try to see if we can't work together to find some solutions. That included getting a key account in John Martin Reservoir that really does help some of these projects like Abby talked about with the Fort Lyon Canal.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, we're going to head into question number 4. And Eric, I think you're going to lead us off. Are you ready? Let me read this out for you. How has the changing climate impacted water resources in Colorado, and how is the state adapting to these changes?
All right. More comfortable with the front part of that question. I'll leave it to the actual water managers to talk about whether we're doing the adaptations. So it's pretty well understood the last anywhere 30 to 50 years, snowpack declines in most watersheds, save for a few near Steamboat, have declined already by anywhere between 4 to 10%. That's the snowpack that's already lessened just in the last 30 to 50 years, depending on where you are. And I think that is a good, at least, indicator that thinking about doing the same or a little bit more with less water would be a good starting point. I think that's going to be one of the main aspects that we need to worry about is what happens to that snowpack. And then as I think Bill alluded to, the timing of that. That means irrigation season may not be April, it might be March 15th or March 1st in the future. So all of that shifts upwards basically into the year, and that's going to be tricky. So I think the timing, the releases will be, that's something that's doable, but I worried about the kind of variability and like the the estimates of the snowpack. I think it's still a little conservative in terms of what might be declining. There's a leak in the system of not being able to track where water goes from snowpack from a few recent hydrological studies. We'll call it mystery water, if you want, that doesn't get into watersheds. And I think that's one of the little small ecological mysteries that glaciologists and snowpack scientists have to figure out. Is it still a benefit? Is it going to local groundwater? Or is it getting into fissures that doesn't alter the system? But those are my main concerns about aspects of climate change, other than the ones we've already mentioned. So I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Addie?
So how does it impact water resources? What we're seeing now is just, in the past when we did planning as water planners, we looked at history and we kind of assumed that it was going to repeat itself. And then we figured out how to capture that water. What we found when we did our 2017 integrated resource plan is we took into account climate change, and we looked at all of those climate futures and worked with, NCAR, the National Center for Atmospheric Research, to figure out kind of what that climate science is. And the reality is nobody has any idea what it's going to do to our Colorado watersheds. But what we're seeing today is that the runoff patterns have changed. We're seeing an earlier runoff. We're seeing a heavier runoff when we do get runoff. You can have a great average snowpack and you don't see the same water flow into your reservoirs. That was one of the big issues with Lake Powell. You can have a great average snowpack year, but the reality is the environment's going to take its water first. We have unhealthy watersheds above that, and those unhealthy watersheds will take their piece of that water. The ground, of course, is going to take its piece if it's been dry outside. So we're not seeing that same runoff pattern, and that's where storage comes into effect. And I know that storage is not the most popular thing to do. We're not looking at on-stream reservoirs. We're not looking at it damming up the creeks and reservoirs. But we are looking at managing our existing storage in an effective way. And some of that may mean building bigger reservoirs. In a year like this, where the Colorado River is still experiencing drought, Lake Powell is still not in a good place. On our Blue River system, we spilled over 4,000 acre-feet to the west slope. Was that a good thing this year? Yes, probably. But in the future, that is water that we're entitled to and that we can manage for our community if we expand those dams a little bit and we're able to manage that storage. As runoff comes off earlier, if you don't have the facilities to pick that up and keep it, and our runoff's done in June instead of July, how are we going to get through the heat in the cities where we're bringing that water? And so we need storage to manage that, and that's really where Colorado Springs is looking. Not only are we looking at partnering with ag to bring additional supplies, but we know we need to increase some of our storage vessels to be able to capture that and store it for those drier years.
Very good. Thanks, Abby. All right. Bill.
Yeah, I thought the mention of the earlier snowmelt runoff is worth talking about a little bit more, because it's partially driven by temperature, but we've had a lot of wildland fires. Of course, El Paso County is not unfamiliar at all with wildland fires. The Waldo Canyon fire, the Black Forest fire are still pretty fresh in people's memories, but other parts of the Arkansas Basin have experienced large wildland fires, and other parts of Colorado, northwest Colorado in particular, have experienced those fires. And so you can have that dust on snow contamination too, or ash on snow contamination that builds a darker layer in your snowpack, that once that temperature hits that layer, that snow is going to melt faster than pure white snow that's developed in this watershed. But those wildland fires also create some just huge management problems, because then you have flooding. And that's the problem with the Arkansas Basin. You have drought or you have flood. I think that one of the early division engineers had some saying like the Arkansas Basin is characterized by years and years of poor water supply, occasionally interrupted by drought. Something like that. But sometimes they're interrupted by huge floods, and if you're not prepared in the Arkansas Basin to take advantage of when those huge floods happen, or be prepared to protect your infrastructure when those huge floods happen, that's a big deal. And so that's important to keep in mind, I believe. I think that probably wraps up.
All right, thanks, Bill. Emmett.
I think this is a tough question for rural Coloradans, and certainly those of us that farm and ranch, maybe not me in particular, but climate change. It's become a political football. I don't think there's anything we shouldn't ignore that. And many of our farmers and ranchers, we farm from between almost 8,000 feet in high meadows to 7,000 feet in the San Luis Valley to 4,000 feet where I am with a growing season that's could be less than 100 days up to 160 days. I think Karen's dad said he saw it snow every month in Crowley County except July during his lifetime. So, there's plenty of things to worry about, and I just think that that trying to come up with a better messaging system is helpful. And it's not like we're not recognizing that we need to make improvements and be better adaptable. It's just that when we look at literature or we go to conferences and that's on the agenda, I think some people's eyes just tend to glaze over.
Thanks, Matt. All right, this will be our final question of the day. And Bill's going to lead us off. And we'll start with, how is Colorado or Colorado Springs addressing issues of water scarcity and drought? And what strategies have been successful?
I think that through the Colorado Water Plan, various governors have identified the need for being able to react to those situations where, you can go from where most of the state was in a drought condition within just a couple years ago to where early in the wet part of this year, I think almost all of the state was out of a drought condition. I think the most recent condition map I looked at showed the whole southwestern part of the state back in drought. So, it's a constant battle. But I think that a couple things I would point to, and some of the panelists are familiar with these groups, but there was both a water availability task force and a flood task force that were kind of sponsored through the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And those groups meet and do some important work, sometimes individually, sometimes together, occasionally together. And it sounds really odd that can you have flood and a drought? Well, yeah, you can have flood and a drought. El Paso County should remember that from 2013. The upper Front Range got all the press with the huge flooding that occurred like in September, October of 2013. But El Paso County got hit pretty hard that year. And that was one of our worst pairs of drought years. 2012 and 2013 was a bad pair of years. So you can have drought turned to floods. So those groups that work together include participants from various agencies that can benefit from some great work from the Colorado State University's Climate Data Center and some other presenters, Natural Resources Conservation Service and others, that try to give best available data to make decisions about what they think the outlook is over the next few months, what has just happened and what the outlook looks like over the next few months. A lot of the municipal water providers and others participate and get to hear some things that various groups are doing to try to adjust to the conditions that they're seeing, whether it be, are you putting on water restrictions or are you not putting on water restrictions? I thought that just getting a chance to listen in when I was a state employee and a division engineer, that was helpful to kind of hear people collaborating on how to react to a tough situation. I think that, again, the roundtables that were established are a great way for folks to be able to put together good ideas that benefit multiple uses, whether it be rebuilding some of that key infrastructure or trying to do projects that create an environmental benefit plus a water use benefit. So I would start this question off with that introduction and pass it on to Matt.
Okay. So, even though some of us might be resistant to the idea that climate change is driving the predicament we find ourselves in, I don't think that necessarily covers up or negates some of the great strategies and programs that are out there. I mean, our partners at NRCS, with the USDA, with the Colorado Department of Agriculture, the CWCB, the Colorado Water Conservation Board, many of us on our canals and reservoirs have aging infrastructure. So certainly the CWCB's loan program has been incredibly beneficial to those of us when we're trying to repair aging infrastructure. Colorado Department of Agriculture's a STAR program, which looks at trying to educate us on soil health and trying to be better stewards, understanding a little bit more about the chemistry of what we're actually doing when we're on the ground and applying water. Certainly going out and looking at different methodologies. I mean, even ourselves, we've changed significantly our tillage practices from just looking at a calendar and saying, oh, it's March 15th, we better put a moldboard plow on the biggest tractor we have, to looking at minimum tillage and different ways to get the ground ready so that when we do have an opportunity, we can plant that crop and not be so wasteful of that water that was supplied to us through precipitation. So I'm going to say that there's some great opportunities out there. I know a lot of farmers and ranchers are working with their soil conservation districts, and again, these are probably our leaders and our innovators, but that's kind of where most things start in industries. And I know in visiting with some of the partners that Abby's agencies work with down in Bend County, they're awful excited about embracing newer technology. And I don't think it's going to solve everything we have, but at least it's giving us a way to focus energy and moving in a direction that I think is positive, both for the land that we're charged with taking care of, as well as our families and the people that we need to support financially. So I think there's some good work being done there.
Thanks, Matt. All right. Eric?
I'll go the other way, is that I think as vital as like the education programs are for changing some of our practice, I'm going to play with Birgit's initial presentation about the best forms of conservation, the ones we don't have to think about. Because ultimately, I just care about taking a shower, not how many gallons per minute are flowing. If it effectively gets water to you in a minute, great. And the decrease in per capita across all cities is like a story we don't talk about at all. Like going from Phoenix used to use 200 gallons per person just like 15 years ago. Now it's down to 100. Like those are things to celebrate. Like I'm often accused of not being doom and gloom enough in the classroom. But that's one of the little bright lights I like to end when like students need a little Prozac at the end of my Waters of the West course. I'm like, we're doing a great job on the consumption part, right? It is sort of thinking about those aspects where if you don't have to think about something and you're already getting the benefits of conservation, yay.
Right.
Right? Fantastic. I don't care what produces a light in a bulb. I'm not going to debate that. It's light, it's water, it's power, whatever fuels my vehicle, fine. So I think, embracing those aspects that we don't have to think about or argue about would be great. I will say one thing as the jerk who is the didactic PhD here, is I think language does matter when we're talking to farmers and agriculturalists. The thing that made me cringe the most about a decade ago was seeing this acronym of ATM associated with the water. I was like, really? You're going to treat farmers like an ATM machine, like you're taking cash out? I was like, ooh, man, it's a major miss. I was like, damn, like that was an opportunity that could have been rethought. Aside that, I think those programs are working great. But I think, thinking about the way we frame issues and not talking about, what was it, a toilet to tap, but new produced water, right, that states are rolling out. That's the way to talk about it, right? Like, these things matter if you don't have to battle the Victorian ethics that we all carry and this is like, ew. If people don't say ew, then you're making conservation savings with the same water or less.
Right.
That's it.
Cool.
All right, Abby, you ready to follow that?
He's popular.
She's got it.
Okay, so I'll just start out by saying we call ours our water sharing program because when we have wet years, we lease water back to ag, and then in the other years we're able to take it. So we didn't love the ATM acronym either. So what are we doing to address scarcity and drought? Really, it's information, right? Our conservation program in Colorado Springs has been huge. We use the same water today as we used in the mid-'80s, and our population has nearly doubled. That's huge, right? So give yourselves a round of applause for that. We are working to transform landscapes, not to pull up grass, but to make it where you don't have to think about it. Where we're working with parks right now and have celebrated 40 acres of transformation where you can put native grasses down, and while you have to water a little bit to get them established, after that you don't really have to water at all, so you don't have to think about it. So with the right landscape and the right systems, it can be an afterthought that, oh, my yard looks beautiful, and maybe I need to go out and pull some weeds because it's been raining, but I don't have to worry about my irrigation system every year. One of the other things that we're doing is, because we're a community that's growing, we're working very closely with the city for the land use water use nexus. If we can look at new development and limit those landscapes at the beginning and have those things in place, that benefits everybody. It benefits our entire community and keeps our water supply reliable. So we were able to do that working with them and pass some of those things through Retool Colorado Springs this last year. Now new landscapes are limited to 25% grass, and we're asking them to use native species because that's important. Again, the partnering with ag users, the collaborating with the environmental users and recreation users across the state, having that information out there has been huge. When you think about the 1990s, I bet our water group probably presented to the board maybe once a year. Now we're in front of our board every single month, talking to them about what our water supply looks like, what we're looking at for the next year. We have our water shortage ordinance in place, and so if it goes bad, we can start watering restrictions very quickly. We participate in the water availability task force, and so we know what other users are doing in the state, and we can collaborate with them. We collaborate on messaging across the board with other users in the state. And so that really has been the biggest thing, is getting that information out. People like you are obviously very interested in water, and I love that. I'm sure that you're not just here for the whiskey that me talking right now is standing between. But that's just a big part of it. Back then when it's raining outside, reservoirs are full, nobody's talking about it. A panel like this would probably have 10 people in it, and you would be really bored by watching me geek out on water. But today I'm glad that you're all here and that you all care. And that's the reason why we're going to go forward with a sustainable, beautiful community.
Thanks, Abby. Appreciate that. And I just want to tag on to something Abby said. I want to recognize Kurt Schroeder, who's just a few rows in the back there. He spent the last 10 years of his career as a parks operations manager reducing our water use within our park system. And it was incredible when it's your largest budget item for our parks facilities, and it's really the green space for a lot of folks in our community. Before you ever mow or treat or clean up, you're paying for water. And so I just want to share that and share CSU's teamwork and collaboration on that. Done an amazing job reducing what we call our water footprint within our park system over that last decade. And we couldn't have done it without the support and collaboration, not only from our elected officials, but from the leadership at CSU. And Kurt, thank you for your leadership on that. I know that was not always an easy task. Well, believe it or not, we are between you all and whiskey tasting. So that is all the time we have today for our panelists. I do want to thank them for sharing their time and expertise with us. Thank you. They will be available for you after the program. finishes up to answer any questions and specific things you might have. I do want to thank you all as well for joining us. We're not done yet. We've got a couple things to wrap up. I want to bring in back to the podium, and I think we'll all head back down. But just want to thank you all for being here, being part of the future of our water, and being a part of that sustainability effort. Birgit's going to take us home this afternoon and share how you can engage and how you can act, and we look forward to that. So Birgit, take it away.
All right, you guys have made it through like an hour and a half. I'm so impressed. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's awesome. And to show up for a water paddle in the year where we had more water than ever on record is impressive as well. Let's see, is the slide? Oh, Carlos, you're awesome. So this water panel is not just listening to what's going on, and I don't know about you, but just hearing about the collaboration, the vision, the planning that these experts, displayed up here makes me think, oh, we're in good hands. This is a relief. But here's the trick. You're part of that plan. So our sustainable water plan for our community has 5 ways that we're going to meet the water demands of the future. And one of those is conservation. That is your job. And so I implore you and challenge you to take some action. And I've listed my top 4 choices up here that I think are going to be the most impactful on the way to make sure our community stays vibrant and healthy. And so take a look at these 4 action pieces here. Work on this. And Colorado Springs Utilities, even if you're not our customer, we are here to help you be the most efficient water user you can possibly be. We have a table in the back with a few items that you can take. Also, since this is a heritage series, history, I love history. I love that the folks that worked at Colorado Springs Utilities in the past had the foresight so that we can be where we are today. We've got some history books and some things in the back for you to take. Those are for free. But then also moving forward, you're part of that future. And so take a look at what we have. Take advantage of the resources available. There is, I forgot all my handouts on the seat over there. But when you came in, there was a little postcard that says you are part of the sustainable future. Flip it over. The QR codes on the back will take you to our water supply page. That also has our sustainable water plan on it. It'll take you to our rebates. It'll take you to where you can find out more about what you can do in your home to change things out and be more efficient. And if you raise a hand, have you been to our Conservation and Environmental Center up on 2855 Mesa Road? Oh, check it out. You guys are awesome. Those of you who haven't, I saw a few hands not go up. Check it out. Beautiful water-wise demonstration gardens, indoor exhibits. Our conservation specialists are on hand to help you out. Take advantage of the programs we have going on. Right now we've got, I'm going to put a plug in for the toilet, Eric. $100 for you for a brand new shiny toilet. Christmas is coming up. It's a great gift for yourself. And so it has to be a high efficiency toilet, but then we will, if you're our customer, pay you $100 for that new toilet. So take advantage of that one. And then native grass. Convert that thirsty lawn to native grass. We'll teach you how. We'll give you the seeds. So check it out. We're here to help. All right, I think that's about all. I just wanted to thank again Thayer and the El Pomar Foundation inviting us here to be part of their Heritage Series. It has been such a pleasure. Karen and the Leadership Institute, thank you so much. A great partnership. And I'm going to bring up Ashley. I know you're like, wait, what? The whiskey is getting warm. But Ashley, if you could just come on up. Oh, there she is, ready to tell you how to go and enjoy some of that whiskey. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm the last person to speak, so I will make it quick. So my name is Ashley Bryan. I'm a fellow with the El Pomar Foundation, and I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you to our partners, and thank you for our speakers and panelists, and thank you to the IT team and Carlos for doing all this, because I don't know how that works. So thank you so much, and I think as we've heard, water really signifies life. So to see our community uniting around this issue gives me a lot of hope that we can address it together. So now I have the easy job of telling you to go enjoy yourself. We would like to invite you all to continue this conversation over at a reception behind you, where we'll have hors d'oeuvres and drinks. And of course, in the spirit of the Western saying, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting, please enjoy a whiskey tasted provided by local distillery Axe in the Oak. So thank you so much, Axe in the Oak, for being here today and supporting us. So thank you all for coming, and get home safe.